Greetings, Keith Prather here with an RV demand index and outlook for NCM. So this is very interesting. The RV market is very perplexing. It's very confusing because there's so many different things happening right now that can push and pull and create headwinds and do all kinds of things. Again, the demand index is a forward-looking index. It's like a leading economic index. It looks out 3 to 6 months and helps us understand what demand looks like. And so you can see in the latest reading, and again, we've reiterated across every one of the videos this month that we are still getting a lot of government data noise. I really need that data to smooth out for me. We held videos later in the month than we normally would, just to try and get a little more visibility and a little more insight from government data releases, but we still have some big gaps out there. I think we'll get a lot more granularity and a lot more visibility in January. But anyway, I want to give you that caveat because we are still seeing the index trail below the long-term average, even though it was about 0.1% higher month over month and about 4.4% higher year over year. We're going up against a little bit of a different trough from last year, so easier comparisons. But again, it's bucking what we call seasonality, and it's actually performing a little bit better than expected. So the index came in actually at 124, uh, up just a little bit from 123.8, but essentially flat. As we look at the RV retail sales index, then again, we're lacking a little bit of detail here, but we did see it inch up 0.3% higher month over month. And again, easy comps from a year ago, up almost 14.4% higher year over year. A lot of dealer incentives out there, a lot of discounting, a lot of things happening to try and pull people back onto showroom floors. I know we are getting after a very cold start to winter. Now we're getting a signal that's kind of flipped a little bit, and now we're getting unseasonably warm weather across many parts of the country. We're going to see Christmas in some markets are going to be 70, 80 degrees. They're typically near freezing. So you've got a very dramatic change, and it's actually got people thinking about a little bit of spring fever and getting out and making some early purchases. And so I would not be surprised if over the holidays you see a little more dealer showroom activity, a little bit of maybe more lookers, but we think that a lot of them are planning ahead, and we could see some additional sales kind of moving into the new part of the year. And here's where we do rely and bounce back on our forecast for retail sales. You see that consumer signal where the consumer signal is much, much stronger than expected. We see it rising, getting a little bit of a Q2 pop. I want to talk about that for a moment. Again, we've talked about it in other videos, but even in the RV segment, when we look at the different age ranges, age ranges of who are buying RVs, you get a wide range these days. So we know that the retiree segment, especially as you know, some of the last of the baby boomers and some of the early Gen Xers decide that they've got a lot of wherewithal, stock markets have performed well, they're independently wealthy, they've got a lot of money, they're taking early retirement. And a lot of them are going to go jump into an RV to go travel the country, to be able to go, travel and tour while they're young and are healthy and they can do that. And then, they'll worry about it 5 or 10 years from now when they need to sell those. But the point being, you have this generation of worker out there that is somewhere between 55 and 65 that's taking either semi-retirement or early retirement, and they're going to be making these purchases. We've also talked much about the aging baby boomer population transferring about $18 trillion worth of wealth down into younger generations. And many of them will take that wherewithal and decide that they can take early retirement, or that they're going to decide to go do something different with their lives. The other side of this is that we do know that the average RV buyer now is somewhere around the age of 42. So there's a much younger contingent out there that is making that foray into purchasing. And we've talked about many times before that many of them are urban dwellers that are living in the inner cities, and an RV or like an overnighter is their way of escaping some of that urban crowding. And they like to get out and they like to go out for their little weekend jaunts out there. So anyway, so that segment of the population is also seeing an influx of income. They're also going to see some improvements with the tax bill. They're going to see over $2,500 a year in additional tax savings, which translate to $100 to $200 a month. As you're thinking about marketing, you think about messaging, remember that $100 to $200 a month could be a key factor for many consumers as they think about what it means to go take on a new debt payment. If they just recently realized that they're going to end up pocketing a little bit more, over the course of the year, and it's about in that range, that might give you some signals as to what kind of a loan amount to be throwing out there to help them understand. I know it was a little convoluted, but I'm just basically saying that in their mindsets, they're going to be thinking, I've got an extra $100 to $120. I'm sorry, $100 to $200 a month to spend. I could take on that much more in debt. And so that might be your key signals and your key thresholds. Um, so a lot going on there. Insights to consider overall. So rates are falling. So about 80% of RV purchases are financed. And we know that Fed rates, it wasn't 100 basis points, but ended up being 75 basis points in 25, following 100 basis points in cuts in 24. We think we're going to get another 25 in Q1 and may even get another 25 a little bit later in the summer after we see some turnover at the Federal Reserve. Bond rates are a little higher, and that's what affects long-term borrowing, especially for RVs where you do have some longer term duration loans. And those bond rates are staying a little bit higher, which could be a little bit of a headwind for some buyers. Consumer sentiment right now, we've still got some historical downtrodden consumers out there. We're still seeing consumer sentiment pretty low. We need to see that sentiment turn, and that's why I've talked a lot about the tax bill. And once they start to see those tax refunds, if we see the labor market and layoffs stabilize, and we see some job creation start in 2026, that should boost sentiment. And with that will come some additional foot traffic and people out spending. Stock market matters. There's an 83% correlation between the S&P 500 performance and RV sales. And S&P 500 is still up about 16.7% year to date. It looks good and looks strong going into 2026. That's going to bring some buyers back into the fold as well. Boomer retirements we talked about. They're going to accelerate. We know we're going to lose about 22 million baby boomers to retirement over the next 5 years. And because of that, some of them will have the wherewithal and the interest, and they're going to want to go out and they're going to want to spend. So retirees are still accounting for about 22% of RV sales. And just know that that contingent, that cohort is going to accelerate over the next 5 years. So get ready. So the last thing I had, and we had this last month, but home affordability is still a problem. And a lot of people are in really low interest rate homes. They don't want to move out of those interest rates. They can't find an affordable home to move to that's the same size that they have today, and they're not willing to make that change. And so many are deciding, maybe we'll take that extra money and we'll go travel and we'll go do things around the world. Um, and so with that travel, many are looking at RVs as a purchase that makes sense to them. And so we think that trend will continue also next year. So again, as I said right up front, there's a lot to watch. So many different generations involved in RVing these days. And we've got good signals across almost all those categories. I think this sentiment issue is the one thing we've got to get over. And I think the Trump administration knows that going into midterms, they've got to change sentiment. They've got to create a more stable economic environment. And because of that, I think moving into Q1, they'll work on that process. And then by Q2, the market will start feeling it. And that's why many of the models, economic models that we look at, and a lot of the forecasts are showing this Q2 improvement. And I think you'll see it as well. So that's what I had for you this month. I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas and a safe and Happy New Year. And we'll plan on seeing you on the other side. All right. Take care. Bye bye.